Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Only Podcast. My name is Chris Vanini. I'm your host, and I'm joined as always by, well, not as always, but this week by The Only Colors co-managing editor, Austin Smith. And Austin, we just watched the playoff rankings, and in a little bit of a surprise, MSU was not included.
Shocking.
What was your reaction to that?
I'm upset, frankly, just mad. Um, I was hoping to see Western a little bit higher, at least, represent another team out of the state besides U of M well. But no, that was, I just remember it being really stressful last year. So if you're looking for a silver lining, at least you don't have to go through that amount of stress again this year. But yeah, just shock and awe that Michigan State's not included.
When they're not included in the initial first four, they've made the playoffs 50% of the time. So there's a chance.
Yeah, that's true. That's a pretty good chance
by those numbers. So yeah, we got a good chunk to talk about here. There was a football game last week that I predicted would have a 70-17 final score, and I was very wrong on that. And Dom's not here to
49-7, so
yeah, didn't Dom say he was going to have some fire takes for this podcast, but he's at some conference and is unable to be here, so that may have to hold off. I don't know what he was going to say.
I mean, I'm sure he'll bring whatever it is to Twitter. So just, I guess, keep an eye out on the only Colors Twitter and his Dom Garrett. I don't know. I don't really know what he would say that is so.
Well, I know he took a lot. He took a lot for that 12-0 prediction, which we kind of knew was going to happen by the time this week rolled around. And so MSU plays okay, but not nearly good enough to beat a team as good as Michigan. And I mean, just some weird things, and we'll get into the positives and negatives and the controversies and questions. But what was your, when that game ended, or as it was going on, what was kind of your reaction to
it? Nothing that really happened was all that surprising throughout the whole game. Besides the fact that State was able to run the ball a lot more effectively than I anticipated early. But they started to do that and then took LJ Scott out in the second drive, went away from it. They had their weekly collapse, but instead of coming in the fourth quarter, it came in the second quarter. And it was similar issues. What's that?
Yeah, they won the fourth quarter, actually.
Yeah, they actually played pretty well. But, made boneheaded mistakes. They showed their youth, especially in the secondary where, again, they weren't able to stop anybody on third down. Amara Darboh just completely tore them apart.
Yeah, I think Michigan finished 5
a couple times.
Yeah, I think Michigan finished 5 for 12, but they were at 50% when they were still trying.
5 for 12 is still almost 50%. It's just not a winning number on third down. Offensively, O'Connor just made his throw before halftime was just so bad. It was just a bad call. It seemed like
it was on him
into that play. Yeah, he audibled into that and then just lobbed it up into the middle of the field. Just a play that you can't make, especially, and I know it's only his first year starting, but especially as a fifth-year senior and upperclassman, a guy you expect to just make better decisions than that. You can't do it. You can't really do it against anybody, but especially against a team like Michigan. It was – I liked that they didn't quit and that they fought to the end. And really, aside from they had a chance. They still, despite making these mistakes, were very much in. And a couple little bounces gone differently. You're talking about something completely different. The thing that surprised me the most is it looked like Michigan kind of took their foot off the gas and coasted especially in the fourth quarter. And that's not what I was expecting. My entire prediction was based off the fact they were gonna try and just completely run it up, but it didn't happen.
Same thing, right? And I'm not saying they were taking it easy, but they did not attack like they could have.
No,
should
not
have.
at all.
They had no problems passing the ball all game, and they just kind of didn't. really. And yeah, I was surprised, and that's what kind of made it close by the end. And
Right.
I guess we'll start with some of the negatives. That decision by Tyler O'Connor just boneheaded. And I was watching it with my dad, and we were talking like, no, you don't go for it here. Yeah, Michigan gets the ball at the half, but just you gotta take it.
Right.
Take where you at. Take a 14-point deficit and hope you can get a stop in the third quarter. Just take it because you can't move. You can't do it. You're not gonna be able to pass down the field this team. And then he does, and it's a bad throw, and it gets picked off easily, and it leads to 3 points. And there were so many opportunities where they just gave away points.
Yeah, and that was the prime example. You just completely gave it away.
They miss a field goal when you don't even know they should be kicking a field goal. They can't score on like 7 straight goal to go possessions in the second half. They could not. It was the perfect first quarter. They controlled the ball the whole time. They were moving it, and they were shortening the game. That's exactly what you wanted. But then second quarter comes around, and they flinched. And as soon as they flinched, Michigan absolutely took advantage. And boom, 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 and all of a sudden you're down 2 scores, and it never really got close again. And they kept making the critical mistakes you can't make. Jalen Watts-Jackson misses a sack. Someone got completely juked out when they had a tackle for loss ready. They just, as all year long, they've made critical mistakes, the plays that lose you games, and they made several of them in this one.
Yeah, they just aren't. Well, it's the difference between a team that is experienced and well coached, and yeah, I know Michigan plays a lot of freshmen, but most of their big minute guys are, pretty experienced, and that's a difference between these disciplined guys and a lot of the youngsters. But even though some of the upperclassmen from Michigan State are out there making mistakes too, but it's just different. The team plays the style of football, frankly, and the discipline of football that we're used to seeing from Michigan State for the past 10 years. And they just can't seem to get out of their own way. Every week, and I've said this ad nauseum, but every week it seems to be something else. And this week it's them unable to get out of their own way. I was a little disappointed that it seemed like they stopped trying to play bully ball, well, except for on the goal line. They kind of stopped doing it. It blew my mind that they finally found something that worked against a good defense on that first drive, like you said, killing the clock, running the ball effectively, and then they took LJ Scott out of the game. I get rotation, but they preach hot hand, and I don't know how a hand gets much hotter than what LJ Scott was doing on that first drive. I just don't. And he was gashing him for 6-7 yards every time.
And it was the first drive. This wasn't in the fourth quarter where you'd ridden him.
Right.
You want to give him a break, okay, but then when you get to third down, fourth down, and short, put him in.
Like, and Holmes, Holmes is not a short yardage back. By the way, I know he's built like one. He has zero field vision.
He's not good in the vision. He powers forward and usually falls forward, and he kind of did fall forward on this one. But in fairness, Jabril Peppers did blow up the play, in a good way.
Absolutely.
But LJ Scott hits that hole quicker, and with more power, and
absolutely
what he had just done. Like for all the criticism that Warner gets for the play calling, his handling of the running backs has just been incredibly poor.
Well, it's 2 years in a row.
2 years.
Ever since he ran, since Langford and Nick Hill left.
And they keep saying hot hand, and it's just not. It's not hot hand. They're not doing it. And if you want to say you take LJ Scott out for pass protection, that's fine. If there's reasons you want to take guys out, if you say, we thought Holmes could pick it up better, fine, I disagree, but at least that's a reason. Don't say hot hand because you're just not doing hot hand. You're just
right. You're just lying.
It's saying it, and you're just clearly not doing it. And it's strange. And then go ahead.
I was just going to say that you're bringing Gerald Holmes in to pass block, but should you pass? Why are you passing? Like, run the ball. You found something that works. And you're also completely tipping your hand by having a pass blocking back that you bring into the game. And I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, if you're like you said, hot hand, how can you be hotter? I don't know how you can have a better drive than the drive that he put together, unless you break off 100-yard run. Like, you have so many questions for the between the play calling, the handling, the running backs, the rotating a million offensive linemen in there. It's like, this team needs to find something that works, and they did, and they went away from it, which doesn't make sense to me.
And yeah, it's just, well, let's talk about that goal line stretch. D'Antonio said it was his call. They ran, I think it was the exact same play to the left. It was running to the left side, I believe, all 4 times in a row after they got that pass interference penalty. Just incredible stubbornness, which they've shown sometimes. And I understand you know, we're running the ball well, so we thought we could pound it in. Okay, but the same thing, like in Michigan's the top rushing defense in the country, and you know, there's a line of thinking which I agree with, which is if you can't punch it in 4 times from the 2, you don't deserve to win. Which, but we knew they wouldn't deserve to win coming into this game. Like, you can't just base it off of that, I don't think. And to not have any sort of play action, you know, O'Connor or QB sneak, which on the 4th down and I think on that goal situation several times there was a full 2 yards of open space.
The 4th down one, there is the most incriminating picture, where it's both of the linemen. Michigan's got 4 down linemen, and both of them are set up on the guard at closest. And there's O'Connor could have gotten 4 yards if he just fell forward.
And someone from the U of M side said it's a trap that Don Brown has, but okay, I would still take my chances on that over your hand off tackle to Holmes. So
100%.
And O'Connor doesn't check into that, but he checks into that throw. The decision making has just been strange across the board everywhere,
from top to bottom.
And I mentioned last week about how D'Antonio was calling out players, which he didn't used to do. He called out O'Connor at halftime and said, "You can't check into that situation." Yet after the game, Warner kind of didn't want to blame O'Connor, and he wanted to kind of just put it on himself, and it's a team and all this kind of stuff. So it was very interesting that the offensive coordinator, the head coach, handled that 2 different ways, and it's not like D'Antonio to kind of throw guys under the bus, and he's done that several times this year. So I'm not sure why. You know, he's a captain. O'Connor's a captain. He's a senior, so that's the guy you're supposed to trust with decision making. And so I don't want to hear any more crap about this Connor Cook not being a captain, because that's not what it's about. Okay, and we keep saying every year this season should make you appreciate how good Connor Cook was last year, but just the decision making across the board. Now, okay, well, speaking of that, your thoughts on both the decision to kick the field goal and D'Antonio saying after the game that it would have made it a 2-score game when it would not have, because they were down by 20.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of. I thought there were 2 moments in the game that sort of just summed up the season in a nutshell, and one of them was that. The fact that you don't understand the situation that you're in, and you think that a field goal will make it a 2-score game, and it won't. Like, that's just, you just can't have that. That's just so not something that Michigan State's done. Like, they're just usually so on top of these types of things. And I don't know. I don't even know what to think. Like, kicking a field goal with this team blew my mind that Michael Geiger made a 50-yarder in this game. Completely blew my mind. So to even tempt fate and put him out there for another one almost seems cruel.
Well, I mean, I understand if you think he's confident after. I would understand the line of thinking of he was confident.
If it makes sense, yeah. But, you know, if it would have made a difference in the game, then yeah, sure, I'm with you. But you know, but the other play that I thought was just such a perfect encapsulation of the season was the last play of the game.
Well, we'll get to that one in a second. We'll get to that after this.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the field goal. My thoughts.
I mean, I don't know. I'll let. Yeah, you go ahead.
You know, I had thought this when I read it, and KJ made the comment on Twitter that he thinks D'Antonio just wanted to make the score a little more respectable, and had essentially given up, but didn't want to say that, so just kind of said something. I might buy that. I might buy that too. I might buy that, but maybe say something different or phrase it differently, because this comes 1 week after Kirk Ferentz kicked a field goal down by 8 because he said they needed 2 scores, and it's the math thing.
Just doesn't make anybody.
Game management with coaches has not been a strong point this year, and it was, I think, 4th and 15. I think it was. I mean, I know you need touchdowns. If he had just said, we didn't think we could pick up 4th and 15 and we want to get points,
fine.
I don't know if it's the best call, but whatever. It's sound, at least. He did not see it. The other decision now, of course, is the decision to go for 2 with 1 second left after scoring a touchdown down by 7. Didn't matter if they kicked or the clock would have had to, if MSU was to recover the onside kick, I believe a second would have had to run off the clock, which would have ended the game. So that they couldn't win the game. And you can't advance an onside kick. You can't return it for a touchdown. The kicking team cannot advance it for a touchdown. So the game was over. It didn't matter. D'Antonio apparently wanted to maybe send a message or kind of end the game on a little bit more of a high note, apparently, by getting it to maybe a 5-point deficit. I thought it was a stupid decision in the first place. Just take the point that's there and whatever. You feel like you have something you can maybe build off of a little bit. Not only, you kept it to 1 score and you fought back, you fought hard. That's kind of your story, but you were outmanned and outgunned. Instead, the worst possible thing you could do happens. One, you run an option with Tyler O'Connor, who's got a bad foot and is already limping around. What is that play call? And you've already fumbled a pitch, even though I know it was with Terry in the game beforehand, but it didn't. And of course, O'Connor pitches it, fumbles it, and Peppers returns it for a nice little Heisman type of moment for him, even though it was gifted to him. And people end up coming out of that game with just an incredible sour taste, more sour than regular losing. My thought was just like, what are you doing? Like, that was my reaction to everything that happened at the end. How did you handle that?
I stood up and walked out of the bar before Peppers hit the end zone. That's what I did. That one, to me, and I think I tweeted that out, was just like that. That's the perfect encapsulation of the season. Like, it's the wrong idea, the wrong play call, terrible execution, and just leaves the worst taste in your mouth. Like, it's every part of what's gone wrong wrapped up into one play. And of course it's Jabril Peppers that is just there to grab the ball and run back the rest of the way. So, I agree with you. I guess if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's, hey, let's put our guys out there. We'll use this as a learning experience, try to execute, a play down in the red zone.
When they lined up before the timeout, I was like, why are they doing this? Is this for practice? Like, is that the reason? I would have even taken that. I would have even taken that excuse. It was an opportunity to run it. And you don't get that many opportunities in the game. The game was over. Whatever.
Right.
The explanation he gave again was just you already had it at a 1-score game, kick an extra point and
right.
The odds of giving up the play that they did are very small, but when you run the play that you called, those odds go up.
It's a terrible play call. I mean, that's the worst part of it. Well, not the worst part of the whole thing, but the option. I mean, the option with that quarterback in that situation in those tight spaces, like the only option play or pitch play that they've managed to run really successfully is that little inside shovel pitch to the tight end. And they didn't even try. I don't even think that would have worked down there. But I don't know. I don't know why they did it. I don't know. I mean, again, like you said, I think if they come out and say, well, it's an opportunity to learn and grow and execute in the red zone, hey, I'm all for that. But it it's just it feels like no one's really paying that much attention. Like, it feels like everyone's sort of detached in a weird way, and it's unfortunate because you just don't expect that from this team. I do think there were some things to build on. I'm not sure if that's
Well, I get to that.
go.
We'll get to the positives in a minute.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just another coaching decision. There have been so many of those this year that you just don't know what they're doing. This is on the heels of that fake field goal against Maryland, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. The decision.
He's had some bad ones in his day.
He's had a lot of bad ones this year. It's just I don't understand. I just don't know where. I keep saying it. I think he absolutely does not at all believe in any sort of leadership on the team, and is just throwing everything at the wall and trying to challenge them and call them out in any way possible, just to see how people react and find the guys that he can trust and find the guys that he can build off of, because
he's got to find the next wave. I mean, the next wave of leaders and on this team have to emerge. I mean, and I agree with you. I think he's just doing whatever he can to get somebody to speak up and do something and become that leader. But it's hard to find those guys when you're not winning games, because you can't point to someone and say, hell of a job, X player, you helped us win this game. And it's hard to build that confidence and that rah-rah and that, that spirit around a team that's lost, 6 game run of games in September. Yeah, it's hard to find those guys. So moving forward, that's the first thing you have to do, which makes losing Lewerke such a
well. That was about to say. So the players just have not at all they have not been put in positions to succeed all year. We said, okay, so not quarterback. We said coming into this game, maybe O'Connor's the best chance to win this game. Maybe you want to go to Lewerke and just go all in on the future. But if you want to maybe win this game, maybe start with O'Connor. And they did. So they pull him, but they pull him for Damian Terry, who drives them down. I think was that the missed field goal drive? The one where he I don't remember which drive he came out. But overall, he ran the ball a little bit. But other than that, not much from Terry, which obviously we know based on what we've seen. Right. So apparently Lewerke was third string all along, because the only reason apparently he was playing was because other guys were hurt. That's based on what coaches had been saying. Antonio said he wanted to see how guys looked before he announced the starter quarterback, and apparently O'Connor's foot was good enough to start, which means he's always been ahead of Lewerke. So Lewerke comes in, it's late, it's sort of garbage time, and he drives him down for a touchdown, which is fine. All then he gets down in the red zone. I think it was the red zone, and he gets sacked on 4th down. Tough play. And he comes limping off the field, which they barely even showed on TV. They didn't even show it. Yeah. A lot of people didn't even know, but I'd known because I saw it on Twitter that he limped off with no power on his leg, and you find out he has a broken tibia, and he's out for the year. So now you've lost your biggest opportunity to build for next season, and just continues to make this season an absolute disaster. I mean, what did you think of the quarterback play, and where do you go from here?
Well, I was on board with you. I think you and I both said it. You start with, I thought that starting O'Connor was the right decision. I thought it was. I thought if, he's won these big games before, and I thought if he went out there and played under control and the lights didn't get the best of him, that, it would actually give him a decent chance to win. But, obviously that didn't happen. And it feels like that win at Ohio State was a million years ago. I can't believe they brought in Damian Terry. I'm just shocked. I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but that experiment, I mean, you see him in fits and spurts for 3 straight years, and it's not like he hasn't had his opportunities to move up the depth chart. It's not like he hasn't had a chance, especially this year, although I know he's been banged up, to jump ahead of either of the other 2 guys. And you haven't seen anything. Like, I can't remember a play or many plays. I know he had a couple in that Ohio State game, but there's never been anything to point to say, this guy is the guy you should put in. Maybe he's the starter next year or whatever. I'm surprised. I was surprised they did that. Lewerke looked the best of the three by a long shot. Again,
and he did what he always does when he generally comes in. He gets out of the pocket fairly quickly, but has the athleticism to make plays and has the arm to make enough plays downfield. And he also has problems, but you see the potential there. Every time he's in there,
100%. 100% you see the potential. And it had me pretty fired up for next year. I was just, until they officially announced it on Sunday, I had no idea he was that badly hurt. From here, I don't know. I mean, I guess if he's healthy, I don't even know. Like, part of me wants to say give it to Terry from here on out, just because, maybe he figures it out and at least there's some type of future there. Whereas with O'Connor, if you go with O'Connor, I don't want to say you're mailing it in because you're not, but there's no. This team right now has to be fully concentrated on the future, and with O'Connor just doesn't. Unfortunately, he just doesn't factor into that.
O'Connor gives them the best chance to win this year, but that means nothing anymore.
Right, and it means nothing. Although, I mean, you can still make the case that if they win 3 of their last, if they find a way to beat Penn State, which at this point they're number 12 in the first college football playoff ranking, I don't see that happening. But if they still want to make a bowl game at 5 and 7, that would be enormous for this team. You saw what it did for Nebraska this year. But I just don't know. I mean, the one thing I pray, and I saw D'Antonio came out and said something about it today, to the effect that I was hoping for. But he said that DeWeaver, they're not going to pull Messiah DeWeaver's red shirt, which thank goodness, probably the best coaching decision they've made all season. You can't throw him into this mess. He's just not ready for it. And I've been tweeting at a couple of different people that are saying, game experience is game experience, but it doesn't matter if he's not ready for it. It could be even more of a detriment. I know we had mentioned it earlier, like throwing him in behind a bad offensive line. What if he just gets hammered and becomes that jittery, like what happened to Shane Morris at Michigan? He just becomes gun shy and never really develops because you threw him in before he was ready. I wonder. I don't want to risk that with DeWeaver. Give him the third string reps. Even give him some of the second string reps. Like, give him as much practice time as he can possibly get without being the starter. But you can't sacrifice that year of eligibility. That puts him and Lewerke in the same class. It does nobody any favors. I do think now, though, since he's going to be healthy all offseason and O'Connor will be gone, he's going to be he might get first string reps all, in any of the winter and those spring practices.
You might,
because they're not going to rush Lewerke back. I think he's got a real chance now. If Lewerke was healthy, I would say he's for sure the guy next year. But I think DeWeaver's got a real shot he's going to play next year in some capacity early on. But he's got a shot to be the starter. I mean, just because of the advantage of playing time and reps in practice, I think he's got a chance. But they just can't waste a year of that eligibility on these meaningless games.
Right. But I'm not going to sit here and say DeWeaver's the guy, he's going to be good, because we said the exact same stuff about Damian Terry. People thought he was going to be in this. Clearly, it's not the case, and we don't know a guy we haven't seen him play. We haven't seen him in practice. We don't know how he's going to be. So I'm not going to pretend.
He's got the opportunity. The opportunity is in front of him. He's going to have plenty of chances to prove that he deserves playing time. That's how I should have phrased it.
Right, and funny thing about O'Connor, I saw a stat, I think it was Pro Football Focus, that said that O'Connor's QB rating on play action is the best in the country. It's like a 120, 130, something like that. And in other situations on non-play action, it's like in the 50s. Like, that's incredible of a drop-off. And you would think coaches would notice this. And remember what I said last week I said Kirk Cousins' first NFL game, every single play was a play action and often a rollout, and that they should put Lewerke in and play action to death and roll them out.
Absolutely.
And the numbers are backing that up with what O'Connor does. And to I don't know why you would rarely ever drop him back, unless you don't think you can protect that much. But clearly his passer rating is so much incredibly better. And the coaches have to have these numbers. They go through so much statistics and analytics. They have to know that. But going forward, this is where it gets interesting, because if you want to build for the future, starting now, all in on the future, Terry starts the rest of the way. Pull back on LJ Scott's workload, not to overdo him, and play all the freshmen you can, unless you don't want to break red shirts. The problem with that is you might have coaches who feel like they're coaching for their jobs here. And if they think they need to perform at their best these last few weeks, you're probably going to get more Tyler O'Connor and a heavy dose of LJ Scott as they go out and try to win every single game. And as a team, you never want to go into a game saying you think you're going to lose or you want to lose or anything like that. But it's a balance here between what's best for the future of the program, because in a sport like college football, the future of the program is bigger than anything. It's not like a pro team where you're tanking to get a draft pick.
Right.
You're playing. You only have 4 years of eligibility, so you got to get guys experience. I'm not sure who's going to start at QB this week. We don't know. The game, by the way, is at noon. It'll be 11 local time there at Illinois on ESPN News. So if you're listening to this and you don't know what channel your ESPN News is, you're going to want to figure that out, because we said it a few weeks back, but if there's anything that illustrated the fall of this team this year, it is having a game on ESPN News.
Man, so I wonder what the last time that was.
I mean, I remember Drew Stanton's senior year game was an ESPNU game back when nobody had ESPNU. As far as MSU playing on ESPN News, I have no idea. I don't know if they ever have. But what do you want to see? What do you want to see? What do you want to do with quarterbacks this year, the rest of this year?
I'm with you, kind of on everything you said. I think outside of quarterback, you have to play any freshman that has already had their red shirt taken off should almost start. I mean, needs to play, has to play all those defensive linemen, which I saw a lot of Austin Robertson, a lot of Josh King, a lot of Panashuk last week.
Yeah, King got shook a couple times in that game.
Yeah.
That's part of growing.
Right. Pretty much the entire secondary at this point, with Nicholson getting benched. Although Miller.
He was benched, but then he got back in because Kerry Willis got benched.
Yeah. I mean, the corners are mostly freshmen. Copeland didn't play at all, but I guess he was banged up. Yeah, I think all the freshmen, like Theo Lacusa, needs to get a lot of snaps. All those wideouts that have already had their shirts pulled they just have to play. I mean, at this point, you're playing for the future at all of those positions. But at quarterback, I'm kind of with you. I mean, if Dave Warner, I said this weekend, I don't know if it's fair or not that he is quote unquote coaching for his job. I mean, he's the name that I know I go to. I don't know if that's necessarily fair, but a lot of fans are in the mindset of he is the center of the problems because he's.
Well, I mean, every fan base hates their offensive coordinator. It's just kind of part of the job. But the problem is, I don't know. I mean, again, everybody blamed Dave Warner for the goal line mistakes, but D'Antonio says that was his call. So I don't know how much of this is D'Antonio. I don't know how much of this is Warner.
But it's also, that's on the offensive line for not getting any push. I mean, I don't think that's what I'm trying to say is that I think he's just getting piled on right now. But I mean, there's no way he's not feeling the heat. There's no way he's not feeling the heat. And I had as many problems with him, and they were the same problems actually last year as the same as this year. Just questionable play calling, questionable rotating of the running backs, things of that nature. And last year he had a quarterback in Connor Cook and a receiver in Aaron Burbridge and an offensive line with 3 NFL offensive line on it for most of the year when they were all healthy to help make his system work. This year he just doesn't have those things, and the flaws are coming to the surface and getting really magnified. And so if he feels like he's coaching for his job, which he might be, I think he'll probably go with O'Connor, like you said, because he I mean, you've seen nothing from Damian Terry. You've at least gotten some flashes from O'Connor, and he knows the offense, has at least more experience than Terry. So, and the same thing with LJ Scott. Although who knows at this point, he could run any running back out there, and I wouldn't be surprised with the way he rotates them. But I personally, as a fan, would like to see him go all in on the future. I would love to see a 4-game audition from Terry to see if maybe some consistent playing time helps him elevate his level of play, plus time against Illinois and Rutgers. I mean, listen, man, if you can't go out there and succeed against Illinois and Rutgers, just take a seat. You're spoon feeding him opportunities here. So I don't know. I think I would, if it was me, I would probably go with Terry from here on out. But understanding all of the different factors, I would kind of be surprised if it's not O'Connor.
That's where I say, if the coaches, if D'Antonio says to the coaches, you guys are okay, you guys are safe, go all in on the future. We're not going to know if that happens or not, but it's
Right.
kind of that balance there. Because if D'Antonio says, I want to see your best coaching job here these last few weeks, I'm not talking about burning a red shirt like Rich Rod did one time late in the year with I don't remember who it was Gardner or something like that. But if these last 4 games are going to be a referendum on these coaches' jobs, they're going to play the best guys they have right now, and that's that's Tyler O'Connor instead of Damian Terry. So
Absolutely,
that's kind of the balance here. I mean, if you want to see them go all in on youth, that may mean coaches are coming back. All the coaches are coming back next year. And
yeah.
again,
I'm interested.
Here's the thing. Well, here we go. Here's the thing. So after 2012, everybody wanted Terrence Samuel, the wide receivers coach, gone because and all the young guys, Fowler, Lippett, Mumphrey, and they all sucked. And people wanted the wide receiver coach change. Oh, he lost the veteran seniors. He can't develop these guys. 2013 starts off poorly, but then by the end of 2013, and into 2014, they have an incredible stock of wide receivers. Lippett's in the NFL as a corner, Fowler's in the NFL as a receiver, Mumphrey's in the NFL as a receiver, and all of a sudden, okay, Terrence Samuel did a great job developing all these guys. So that's where it kind of comes down here. Warner lost all of his key players coming into this year. How much of that do you factor in when he has nobody? Here's what he is. When he has everybody, as he did in 2014, he breaks every school record there is. So that's the type of evaluation D'Antonio is going to have to make if he thinks they should go in any sort of different direction. I have no idea what decision he is going to make on any side of the ball, because let's talk about the defense for a minute. The defense was not very good either. They did okay stopping the run, but again, they cannot cover anybody downfield. Darian Hicks got a good interception on a wheel route, but he was burned a couple times by Darboh, who lit them up. And the linebackers got pushed. Ed Davis actually got better as the game went along, but Chris Fry got pushed around. Riley Bulla got pushed around. What do you think defensively about that game and going forward right now?
Well, the wheel route has now been defeated one time. As I know, the wheel route until this game was completely undefeated, but now it has suffered one defeat. I know that's like your favorite play. So, I want to attribute more of the defensive issues to youth and inexperience more than I want to attribute than the offensive issues.
Well, Cox didn't play in this game. I wasn't dressed. That's you're supposed to be your senior captain defensive back, and he was not. Who had plenty of problems here. But Khari Willis started. Khari Willis, a sophomore. Grayson Miller, a sophomore. Willis and Grayson, they both started the game in Ann Arbor last year. They both started this game. And Grayson Miller's actually done pretty well. The fact that you actually haven't seen him much, I think is actually a compliment to how he's playing. But Khari Willis got benched for Nicholson, who started the game benched. And Nicholson had some good plays, but he also had some really bad, poor angles again. Just kind of making the same mistakes he always does. He's a junior, though. He'll be back next year. And I'm curious to see if he'll be a captain because he'll be a senior. But what do you think?
That's the most frustrating part about this is the Monte Nicholson is almost a perfect test case. Is that guys just haven't developed all that well, and it's forcing a lot of these freshmen and so many guys left, but it's forcing a lot of guys to the top of the depth chart. I mean, I like to think that this game experience that they're all getting is going to really help them, especially along the defensive line. Once these kids kind of fill out a little bit and understand, I just think they're going to get better. You develop your pass rush skills. Right now, they're just not. I mean, they're still freshmen. They're 18-year-old kids going up against juniors and seniors, and they're just not as physically ready as they're going to be. I mean, if you look at Shalik Calhoun from his sophomore year to his senior year, I know he had those touchdowns and everything, but like he's just a different, like physically just a different guy. So I like to think that moving forward, that pass rush will improve and it'll kind of work its way. The pass rush improves everything. If you've got guys getting after the quarterback, your corners have to cover for less time. You don't have to blitz your linebackers as much, and your defense just improves in general. So I'm optimistic about that going forward, but I think the guys right now you can't win without this team's not good enough. This defense isn't good enough to win without a pass rush. They just keep getting burnt over the top. They're hardly the only program in college football to get beat, down the sideline by wide receivers. It's actually funny. I was at the Pitt West Virginia game last Thursday, and it was like watching a Michigan State defense. Virginia Tech
they are having big problems.
They just kept throwing the ball deep down the sideline. Virginia Tech, Bucky Hodges, and then their receiver number 1, I don't remember his name, just kept going up and making plays. And they're saying, we're going to keep throwing it because you can't stop it. And that's what Michigan did with Darboh. They just kept throwing him the ball because they know you can't stop it. And that was that. I want the pass rush has to get better. It's one of the absolute worst in the entire country. Until that improves, you can't really expect improvement in any other area. I don't know if this is even correct, but just from my watching it, it doesn't seem like they even blitz all that often. Now, I could be wrong about that because I'm not specifically watching it.
They didn't seem to in this game, but they did. It felt like they did more in the second half when they were kind of making their comeback, although they never really got there. They didn't. I don't think they sacked Spate, although they did hit him a few times.
Yeah, I mean,
but I feel like when they sit back in coverage and only rush 4, they just cannot cover. It's not working.
They can't cover.
But their blitzes aren't getting home either. So I guess you try to catch them off guard and you try to mix it up, which I think they did in the second half there.
Yeah, they actually got a couple stops in the second half, really slowed them down in the fourth quarter. But I just it's tough. It's tough right now. There's no real surefire answer beyond development. And those are the guys really that, like I said earlier, I think those are the guys that need all that playing time. Like those – I honestly should probably start Panashuk, Robertson, and King from here on out along that defensive line because the other guys just aren't getting it done and don't contribute as much to the future of the program. And so, and Raequan Williams, get him in there. I hope they don't pull the red shirt off Naquan Jones. Like I hope he stays on the sideline.
Yeah, don't pull out anybody unless you're. I mean, they did Joe Bocce because they were
they had
down because they were out of linebackers, which was their strength coming into the year. But other than that, don't burn any red shirts at this point of the year. So, another before we get into Illinois topic here, Chris Fry, he took a big hit on. I don't remember if it was a special teams play or if it was a defensive
I think it was a kick return or a punt return.
Yeah, and he gets lit up by a Michigan player. Gets hit in the head. Goes down on the field for a few minutes for being kind of helped off, although kind of was able to walk off on his own. It looked to me like targeting. Looked to me on the replay it was targeting. Replay officials are allowed to make those calls even if the on-field official misses it, although I've only seen it happen, I think, once in a game this year, at least that I've watched. I'm sure it's happened more. But that was a new rule this year. And David Harns reached out to the Big Ten today, actually, and they said that the replay official did look over it quickly, did not believe it was targeting, and so they didn't. So it was reviewed, and they determined it wasn't. I'm not quite sure how. It seemed pretty clear to me. I mean, when you base it on what the rules are. But the other issue is Fry only missed, I think they said 2-3 plays, and I think about 2 minutes real time and came back on. And D'Antonio has been criticized for some people believing Fry did not go through the protocol. D'Antonio said Sunday that he assumed Fry went through the protocol. I mean, D'Antonio's not the one putting him in the game. That's on the linebackers coach who determines the rotation of guys. And D'Antonio said he didn't even know he got hit until halftime. But D'Antonio's been criticized for Fry going in. Said he assumed he went through the protocol. He said today, Tuesday, that he did go through the protocol and was all clear and continues to be all clear other than having a sore neck. So I don't know if – and D'Antonio said the doctor determines that. He doesn't have anything to do with it. But MSU has been criticized for this. How do you think they handled it? Do you think there needs to be more questions asked of D'Antonio and either the staff or the medical staff or something like that? Or what's your take on this situation?
Well, let's start with the play in and of itself. I mean, if that's not targeting, I don't know what is. That's leading with the crown of your helmet against a defenseless player, out of the play. If McDowell's hit on Legau against Indiana and I don't remember exactly which linebacker it was for Michigan last year, his hit on Connor Cook. Yeah. If those are targeting and you're going to tell me what we just saw isn't targeting, then why even have the rule? I mean, like it's ridiculous. That's such to me, it's so obvious. And the fact that the refs and the conference would then double down and deny is just crazy to me. But also, if it's not targeting, is it not unnecessary roughness? Is it not? That's something. That's not football anymore. Maybe back in the day, I guess, a long time ago, but that's not football. And the refs should be held accountable in some way, shape, or form. But I also think Michigan State should be held accountable for the way that they, the fact that he was back in right after that is, I don't know exactly who that's on. I would think it's on the medical staff. I can't imagine. I think D'Antonio's probably right. He said he didn't even know about it until halftime. Like I think he should probably. I mean, he's the head man, so everything always falls on him, as he knows and as everybody else knows. But to me, that falls more on the medical staff for not really making sure. There's no way you can get proper concussion protocol done in the amount of time that they did it. And then, again, I guess like you said, it's on the linebackers coach, Mark Snyder, to make sure his guys are good to go and not put them in harm's way. But also, I mean, if the medical staff tells him like, hey, he's fine, then what's he supposed to do? He's supposed to be like, no, check him again. He's not going to do that. Not in a game against Michigan, not with one of his two best linebackers out there. He's just not going to do that. So I have a hard time holding him as accountable. So to me, it probably falls on the medical staff, but questions deserve to be asked. I think D'Antonio is the head coach, so he can understandably be held somewhat accountable, but I don't think it falls on him, unless he goes over. He's not the coach from Varsity Blues where he's making sure that the guy takes the cortisone shot in his knee. He's not doing that. So probably falls on the trainer more than anybody else.
I mean, at this point, though, in terms of asking the questions, I mean, they asked D'Antonio about it at his press conference. He said he did go through and they have all these tests and he was cleared and he's fine. I think the follow-up questions are, how long does that test normally take? How long does it typically take to go to the protocol? Did he go through the entire thing in 2 minutes or whatever it was? And D'Antonio didn't know at the time, but upon now, he should be able to find out that information, talk to the doctor. Did you go through everything? And it's important. And
it is.
Some people brought up the Shane Morris situation from a few years ago and how Michigan was very much criticized for that, and because reporters kept asking. I do think it was a little different in terms of the reaction to it because, one, Michigan botched how they handled that in terms of comments and midnight press releases and conflicting statements and changing stories that dragged it on for a whole week. D'Antonio said, I assume he went to the protocol today, says he did go through the protocol. Problem is you maybe need to ask some more follow-up questions as to exactly what that entails. The other thing is that everybody saw what happened to Shane Morris. They saw him wobbly in the game, fall into a guy, and the commentary pointed it out. And so there was imagery there. With Fry, we never really got that. And now Chris Fry's dad says, instead of questioning the medical staff, why aren't we questioning why it's not targeting? You can do both. I mean, clearly his dad thinks it was fine, but these trainers and coaches are also meant to protect players from themselves, and that's what a big part of this is. So if D'Antonio says he's fine and he's cleared and checked out, maybe he is, but I think it'd be worth questioning how long that protocol goes, and if he talked to people and not at the time, but now has talked to people and is clear that Fry went through everything that needed to go through, because that's what
player safety is above all. I mean, that's been certainly the NFL's pitch, but just the game of football in general. It's about, like you said, protecting players from themselves. So I think questions do need to be asked. That'll probably happen internally. I mean, maybe we'll hear about it and something will happen, but or you'll notice someone's not on the sidelines next week. But all in all, it's definitely disappointing. I mean, to me, just as the layman, I can't imagine that they were able to go through the proper protocol in that amount of time. But hopefully they were, and hopefully we're just being negative about it.
Right. And so next game, Illinois, which comes in at 2-6. They have struggled very much. The last 2 weeks, they lost 40-17 to Minnesota. They got blown out 41-8 at Michigan. They did beat Rutgers in a game that was maybe closer than the 24-7 score, but they lost to Purdue at home. They're a team that came in with a good defensive line for, I believe they're near the country in tackles for loss and maybe sacks. But Wes Lunt is out, likely out still. He's been out. It sounds like Jeff George Jr. will be the quarterback again. He's only completing 41% of his passes. There's also they had another guy, Chase Crouch, who I believe got hurt and is looks like he's listed as out. There is not a lot of weapons on this team. They have struggled. This is a game, for as bad as MSU has played, they need to win this game just for sanity, their own sanity's sake. I don't know. What do you think of Illinois and of this game?
I mean, like you said, this is a game Michigan State should win. They're playing a bad team without its quarterback. I know Illinois can get into the backfield a little bit, but I mean, if Michigan State were to lose this game, it would be the worst loss this season by a fairly, and that's saying something, but by a pretty decent stretch. I know they're on the road, but this is a bad team. They should be able to run the ball.
But MSU's been a bad team too.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I don't shy away from that. But I mean, this is another thing. I mean, talent level, Michigan State should have a much more talented roster at this point. But I guess it's hard to say. I mean, if Michigan State goes back and plays bully ball like they did in that first drive against Michigan and a couple other times in that game, and just sticks to what's been working, I think they should win the game. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. But if they don't, and they make the same dumb mistakes, and they go away from the hot hand, and O'Connor audibles into interceptions, and they miss field goals and just do the dumb stuff that they've been doing, then they might not win. It's possible they lose. I don't really know anymore. It's hard to pick on one thing and say, like, this is how you win. But I will say for Illinois, they have a couple of great names.
Over the last two games, they've run the ball well. That's been a positive. They've run the ball well. Illinois is middle of the pack in the country in rushing defense. So you suspect they're going to you expect they're gonna run the ball, but they couldn't run the ball against some teams, and yet they could against Michigan. So what team is gonna show up?
Well, here's the thing.
If the team that played last Saturday against Michigan, if that team had played like that every week, they would not be a 2-6 team. They would have beaten Maryland. They would have beaten Indiana. And if they had won those two games, which they should have won, they'd be in good position to get to a bowl. They'd be 4-4 with Illinois and Rutgers next, and there's your bowl game at 6-6. But that effort has not been there. That play has not been there. That falls on the leadership. That falls on the coaching to get the players ready to go. That falls on the whole team for having the right mindset you need to not look past a team like Maryland and Indiana and get up for a game like Michigan when by that time all you're playing for is your pride.
Yeah, well, you hope that now that pride kicks in. I mean, you got to look at it this way, right? But Antonio's in the locker room saying, guys, if we don't win our next 4 games, we're not going to a bowl game. You hope that he's still got the locker room, frankly, because at this point, if they come out and play, I think Illinois, even if Michigan State's 2-6 and they're bad, I still think Illinois is going to look, and Lovie Smith has been an NFL coach. He's going to look at his guys in the eye and say, that's a program that's won a lot of games the last couple of years. Go out there, make a statement, win a game at home. At the end of the day, they can still say, hey, we beat Michigan State. I think, for what that's worth this year is up to you. But they've got to come out and play with some pride. They play, like you said, they play with some pride, play with some energy, come out and execute like they did last week for several different periods. They should win this game. They're the better team. They're the more talented team. But, that doesn't get you anywhere.
They've been that
and
before.
actually play the game. They've been that. They were the better team. They've been the more talented team in almost every game. You should think this season, but they've had the wrong things. They've had things go wrong at the wrong moment. And the way I would pitch it, if I'm to Antonio, I'm like, guys, we haven't won a game since September. Go out and remember what it's like to win a game. You came here to win football games. Show some pride. Show some integrity. Like, let's go beat this team. We're not. This isn't us. What's happened this season isn't us. Let's go beat us again. And if he's still got the guys' ears, and hopefully there's a couple leaders that are getting ready to step up there, like some guys. I hope there's some guys in that locker room, and I'm sure there are, that are just mad. That are mad that this happened. That are embarrassed and are ready to go out there and play with some fire in their belly and take it to a team that they should beat. So I mean, they should win this game. They should finally get off the schneid. But then again, they should have beaten several of the other teams they played this year. So
I said this to you. I said this to you on Twitter today when you were talking about if they went to a bowl at 5-7, and I said,
yeah,
when you look back on this year, it's not going to be the Michigan game. It's not going to be the Notre Dame one. It's going to be the losses to Maryland and Indiana where you look back.
Absolutely.
And how the heck did that happen? They had a fourth quarter lead at Maryland. They had a 14-0 lead, I think, at Indiana, and they blew both of those with those are the game that when you're a team like this, those are the game. We talk about critical games to either win a championship or not, like last year. To make a bowl game, those are the games. And I mean, if you lose to Illinois or Rutgers, then those become the defining moments of the season, and you realize just how much all is lost. But it's those early season games against Maryland and Indiana that are going to haunt this team throughout, I believe, are going to haunt this program throughout the offseason when they don't have those bowl practices to go through. And
100%.
There's a lot of reasons you can look back to those. So Illinois, MSU was, believe it or not, I think favored by 9, I saw.
9?
Which seems
wow
insane. But
yeah,
Illinois has been really bad with Jeff George Jr. at quarterback. And of these 6 straight losses, MSU's been favored in 5 of them. They're still getting that respect despite how bad they've been this year. They were favored against Indiana. They were favored against Wisconsin. They're favored against Northwestern. Favored against Maryland. And they were not favored against Michigan. Yet that's the spread that they covered. So,
right. That's the irony. Isn't that one of the most bitter ironies of this entire season? Is that we play that disrespect card. So we love to play it. And we earned it, frankly, a lot. But they finally get some respect from the Vegas guys, and they just, oh man, they make Vegas a lot of money probably, but just don't even come close to living up to it this year. So, I said in the column against, I think it was Northwestern, if they lose this game, I won't pick them the rest of the year. And so I have to stick to that. But
are you picking Illinois? Oh man,
I'm TBD. I don't know if I can stoop that low especially after looking okay last week. I think had they gotten blown out the way you and I both expected them to, I probably would just double down on it. But I think I'm going to break my own promise. I can't. I mean, we've seen some dark days, and we've stooped pretty low as Michigan State fans, lifetime fans before. But I don't think I can pick them to lose Illinois team with a third string quarterback.
It is tough. It is tough. I'm
It's
right
tough.
there with you. Your party is telling you not to pick them. Party is thinking, yeah, this team could lose to Jeff George Jr.
I know there is that very real part of me that's thinking they could.
Remember
lose
that year?
this. I mean, we haven't seen a win in 6 weeks. I mean, what if you there are threads you can pull on both sides, but at this point, it's like you're 2-6. How could you pick them to beat anybody?
There was that year where Indiana had to play Xander Diamont.
Oh yeah,
and that was like a close game going into halftime, I think, and before MSU pulled away in that one. So that was a good MSU team. So.
Well, those teams had a couple scares. I mean, they beat Purdue like 14-0.
Last year, a fourth down spike got them away from Rutgers, and they escaped Purdue. So
they barely beat Maryland last year. I mean,
this is a team the last 2 years has played up and down to their opponent, and I think they're going to happen again. Do you have a score?
I don't have a score yet. I'm going to wait until Friday to put a score up. But I think
not going to give a score, man.
Well, okay. All right. You put me on the spot. I'll go.
I don't think there's anything between now and Friday that's going to – they have Jeff George Jr. at quarterback. They're not good anywhere. They're not good anywhere except for maybe on the defensive line. I don't think any – you know what, MSU? I don't think any more research is going to make you feel better about picking either bad team.
I think you're right about that. I'll say 24-7 Michigan State.
I'll say 21-20 MSU.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm like trying not to burst into tears over here. Like picking us to win by 1 against.
Imagine if they lose and we have to pick on the Rutgers game the next week. Dude, cool. Are we gonna pick Rutgers?
I mean, is it if these next so it's these next 2 games are Illinois and Rutgers, right? Yep. I'm remembering the schedule.
And then Ohio State, Penn State.
And Ohio State, Penn State, jeez. I mean, just get these 2. Like, if you're just get these 2, you're going to probably just get stomped by Ohio State.
Yes.
But if they can get into that last game, I mean, if you're Coach D, you got to be like, guys, we can still
play for a 5-7 bowl.
You're grasping at straws, but like, hey, do you want to be the ones that break this bowl streak? Blah, blah,
Forget
blah.
about the bowl streak. When you get to that last week, how do you not get fired up for the Land Grant Trophy?
Right. Yeah, it's the best looking trophy in all the land. That's for sure.
This is the stuff when you're playing in your backyard as a kid. You dream about making the winning play to win the Land Grant Trophy.
To win the
And we'll talk about that game in 3 weeks. So we both pick MSU over Illinois reluctantly.
Hesitantly.
And the future is lost without Brian Lewerke for the rest of the year. You hope he heals up and he's okay. But if you wanted to feel good coming out of the Michigan game about anything, that washed away very quickly when you realized your quarterback was gone.
Yeah, that was a bitter pill to swallow. I mean, you just hope for development at every other. You just hope there are a lot of other freshmen playing. They just need to develop and get as ready as possible for next year. But you're going to be in a predicament similar to this one, just with younger players next year at the beginning of the season, where it's like, you just don't know what you're going to get at quarterback. It's panned out really well for Michigan State a couple times, but there are a couple others where it has not. So we'll see. But yeah, hopefully he can heal up quickly and be ready to compete in the spring.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. This ended up going longer than I expected, but it was a good evaluation, I think, of the state of things and where they need to go from there. We're probably not going to have a ton of analysis out of out of an Illinois game and heading into a Rutgers game. So we'll see how things go next week. But if you listen
Hopefully
all the
we're
way through,
celebrating.
if you listen to everything all the way through, appreciate that. Give us any feedback on anything that's good and bad. And we will talk to you guys next week. So for Austin, this is Chris. Thanks for listening, and talk to you guys later. See you.